There seems to be a little bit of a renewed interest, though, right, in nuclear across the board. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, as scary as nuclear is to, I think, a lot of people, it's probably the most cleanest and most efficient way of getting energy. So what kind of movement are we seeing on that?
Yeah, so there's definitely been a shift in policy circles towards a new emphasis on nuclear energy. There are problems with nuclear, though. They have very high upfront costs. So nuclear is very expensive. The degree to which that regulation is responsible for that, it's probably playing a big role there. Nuclear is a great technology, doesn't produce carbon, very minimal environmental impacts and things. There's sort of this problem where technologies that are born in sort of government captivity, like nuclear was, through sort of the atomic bomb program and stuff, when technologies are sort of born under control of government, it's very difficult for people in those industries and obviously the policymakers that sort of surround it to take a step back and say, the government really needs to take a step back and kind of take a hands-off role with this technology. So, I'm certainly in favor of basically decriminalizing nuclear and trying to move barriers to nuclear out of the way. I am a little pessimistic, though, because I think there's sort of a culture within that industry that has sort of always been comfortable being a part of government, playing along with the agencies that regulate them. So it's going to be very difficult for nuclear energy advocates to sort of decouple that relationship. But I would support efforts to do that, and there is certainly a movement amongst policymakers to try to make that happen.
One of the things I think is a challenge, even in the U.S., I mean, regardless of where you are on this, whether you're really want to pushing for green or you're not, is that, from administration to administration, they're going to have very different policies on this. So the Biden administration might have a strong push towards renewables and green energy. And then the next thing you know, you have a Republican administration that comes in who really has no interest in this. And so it makes it very challenging when there's not a consensus amongst politicians and amongst even people in the country about which way to move.
Yeah, definitely. I think in general with energy policy discussions, I think there's a cultural problem where everyone is looking towards Washington, D.C. for, how are we going to drive innovation? How are we going to, change these industries and things? I think that's really unhealthy because I don't think politicians and policymakers necessarily have the best incentives to be able to identify what the future of technology is going to be. They definitely don't have the knowledge and incentives to sort of guide that technology along. That's what the private sector is so good at doing. I personally would really like to see a shift away from energy policy discussions being about, well, what type of energy are we going to support? Who are we going to subsidize? Who are we going to regulate? And a shift back to a culture of sort of free enterprise that says, no, we're going to eliminate barriers to enter energy markets. We're going to let everyone compete, and we're going to see what customers and consumers prefer, whether it be in terms of where they get their energy from or what type of vehicles they want to buy. And I think that the business community really needs to play a role in making that shift from not looking towards Washington to tell them what sort of products to make, rediscover, I guess, sort of the culture of free enterprise that made America great and has really driven innovation and the sort of things that we're looking for the future of energy.